Well, hello, everyone. I'm Frank Fear. Unfortunately, Greg Crist is under the weather. He will not be with us today, unfortunately. We hope Greg gets back to it full health very, very quickly, of course. But I'm pleased to have my partner, Mark Parsons, I should say our partner. Mark, thanks for being here. And you're down in Tennessee.
Yep.
Oh, always a pleasure. You're down in Nashville, correct?
I'm in Nashville. Yeah, I'm right now. I'm at Mark Bulger's T-Line Bar in Nashville, former quarterback from WVU.
That's great, and usually get a good crowd down there. But with the early start, when you think about it, it's an 11 o'clock kick out in Lubbock, and so it's 12 for us. But in the central zone where you are, and in the mountain, it's much earlier. So we appreciate those who are with us today. And one of the things that Mark brought up was the wind, and we just checked, and it's not as strong as it usually is. Looks to be about 10 miles an hour out of the northeast, I think, at game time, with gusts up to 14. But nothing like we've seen down there, Mark. Sometimes it's really pretty significant wind.
Oh, yeah. I remember when first time we went there, when Geno Smith was quarterback, it really affected the passing game, and we got destroyed out there. Actually, Neil Brown was offensive coordinator at Texas Tech at that time. They beat us like 45-12 or something like that. It was bad, but the wind, they weren't ready for it, and Dana Holgorsen tried to prepare them, but if you're not used to that, you just till you get there, you just have to kind of see it to believe it.
That's right. Very true. And we've got a comment from Chad Atkins that WVU never plays well in Lubbock. And one of the things we mentioned on the Wednesday show with Greg, he was with us, is that that's a strategy on the part of what's that? That's a strategy. That is getting off to a quick start. And in response to Chad, we put up in 2022 when we played there, Tech got out to a 31-3 lead. And if you remember that game, it was sort of ho-hum. Even before it was 31-3, we just couldn't move the ball. And Morton, the quarterback who's playing today, had 325 and 2 TDs. As we'll talk later, he did not have a good game in Morgantown last week, but that's a strategy. And Mark, I looked at the games played this year, and in almost every one of them, Tech got out to a fast start, and that's their game plan. Get out to a fast start, put pressure, particularly at home where you get the home team involved in the game, home fans involved in the game, and that's one of the things we got to watch out for.
Yeah, I think we really need to. It might play in our favor. I know Dino Brown most of the time has taken the ball to begin with instead of deferring to the second half. It might be to our favor to get the ball first. We have nothing to lose, really. Why not take a shot on that first play just to see if you can get something downfield? If you got a quick score, let them know you're there. That might help us some. But after that, I think we really need to establish the running game, eat the clock, and keep their offense off the field, because if they do score quickly and they run a up-tempo offense, which is something that having a limited defensive line where we don't have a lot of depth is going to that could be a factor on our guys getting tired in the second half.
Yeah, no question. For those of you who were with us on Wednesday, we put this visual up. Mark and I were talking about it again, but it's worth putting up because talk about a tale of two cities, so to speak, for Texas Tech. A national class offense, and not at all when it comes to defense. And the Baron Morton, we've seen him now 3 years in a row. He's a 3-year starter. He was a part-time starter. He didn't start the game last year in Morgantown. He came in, but he has progressed every year in the position. I mean, it's really impressive. He's thrown more passes each year, more completions, a higher completion rate, more yards per completion, more TDs, and a better quarterback rating, and fewer INTs. But the line is giving up more sacks this year than they did last year. I think it was 12 all year long. Here we are in the last game, and they've given up 24. And so that's a key for the defensive line. He's got a cavalcade of great wide receivers. Remember these names, because if they're catching the ball, that's tough for our defensive back, the backside. Josh Kelly, Caleb Douglas, and Coy Eaton. Those together, each one, by the way, 500 yards, together 2,100 yards. So if you think about
unbelievable.
yeah, each one of those guys has 500 yards already, 2,100 yards as a group, and they've caught 16 of the 25 TDs that Morton has thrown. And Taj Brooks, who did a number on us last year, also has numbers just like Morton, gotten better every single year, and he has 1,300 yards this year. So here we go again with a double-barreled offensive attack, both on the throwing side and the running side, that we have to watch out for. And one of the things you have to watch out for is though going to the perimeter on the passes to get us spread out, and then having Brooks run up the middle. But last year it didn't work for them. Morton had it was a bad game. He missed 24 of 37 passes, and he only threw for 130 some yards. Brooks got his yards. He had 150 on 25 carries. And even though Nico, who started that game, played that game, because if you recall, Green was out, the team was really bad. Tech was bad on third down conversions. They only 11%, 2 of 18. They had a lot of chances, but didn't convert. And that last line, Mark, says it all. Of the 133 major college programs that the NCAA follows each week, Tech is in the top 20 when it comes to total offense, but they're 125th in total defense. Now, again, I'll repeat, that's 125 out of 133. They're giving up 7 yards a carry almost, 36 points a game, and we pulled out here. They gave up 59 to Baylor, 51 to Abilene Christian. And in defense of Abilene Christian, they're having a good year, even though I would consider them sort of a mid-major, to use that from basketball. But 48 to Oklahoma State, 41 to Cincinnati, and Colorado. Some of those games, Tech got out to a quick start and couldn't sustain it. In other games, like against Cincinnati, they really didn't. They got off to a quick start against Colorado and then lost the game. So your thoughts about those numbers, which from my perspective, I think it speaks volumes about what we're up against.
Well, I think it shows that they have a very potent offense. But to be devil's advocate here, the fact that they do give up sacks might hint at the fact we may throw in some blitz packages today to be able to put some pressure on that quarterback. I think we're going to have to help our pass defense, be able to hang in there. I'm hoping that we can. I'm expecting a shootout, but I'm hoping we can get a couple of stops and contain them, to where we can win it in a close one. I'm hoping. I just think, they're 125th on defense. We're 99th. We're a little bit better than they are, but I'm hoping we can get some stops. And the fact that they've given up, those high numbers of points, they are potent. But my personal opinion is I don't think we want to get in a shootout with them. We want to try to keep it in like a 30, mid-30 range, and win it, just in a close one at the end. I don't. If we get in a shootout with them, I'm afraid with their offense, and if our defense gets tired, then we're gonna struggle in late in the game.
Yeah, time of possession. You got to grind it out. That's where our running game really has to come in. Now, Kelly's asking the question, who's playing at quarterback today? I've heard nothing but Garrett Green. I'd be shocked, outside of injury, that he would not play today. If you watched Coach Brown's presser on Monday, he talked a lot about Garrett Green and how much of a gamer he is, how much he respects him, and one issue he said, he's got to get better in terms of accuracy on passing. We know that, but in terms of a game like this, his running will be a really important. Timothy has a question. Yeah, what do you think about this? Yeah, ball control, possibly get some turnovers, right?
Yep, that's what I think. That's what happened to him last year. We got a little pressure on him, and he had a couple interceptions. And I think like you said, ball control, take a couple of deep shots ourselves. I don't think we can get into a match with them having to just take deep shots. If we're going to depend upon the deep shots to win the game, we're going to struggle. Like you said, I think we need to get kicking that ground game, control the clock, and the short passes have worked for us. The tight end's probably going to have a big factor in this game, and I think don't rule out special teams. We've
That's
had
right.
pretty good special teams, kicking, place kicking, as well as our returns. Let's may come down to that field goal.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a good one. I think that what Timothy's saying here makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Ball control. The big question is who's going to step up on the receiving side. We know that Ray's out of the game. Bray is out for the season, and so the question is who on the receiving core, both in terms of wideouts, the flankers, and the tight ends, are going to be able to get open and Green can find them. That's really critical because he just can't run.
I think Cole Taylor, the tight end, is going to have a big impact in this game. Clement is like money. He doesn't drop very many passes. And I think, Justin Robinson, if he's been up and down. This is one of his weeks where he's hopefully he's going to have a good game and he can, fill the void a little bit. And of course, there's always Gallagher. He's had a couple of big catches.
Yep.
So.
And I like what you said about special teams. Coach Brown said their special team, you've got to worry, particularly on the kickoff returns.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got a good punt returner too. But we've had great success, particularly on both kicks and punts. And turnovers are the key. And Nick has a question here, or maybe it's a question. Last game for Neil Brown, the speculation is always rampant. It continues. Some people contend the decision has already been made one way or the other, even if it's to remove him, then even who might follow him. But it's anybody's guess. And one thing I learned a long time ago: you wait until the announcement. You can speculate, and a lot of people have fun with that. But the bottom line is, and Greg says this, and I agree. It's a matter of the program. Support the program. You stick with it, who the coach is at the time, and if there's a change, we're seeing that in basketball right now. And so then you just keep on supporting the program. Kelly has a comment. Yeah. Kelly's agreeing with you on Cole.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I think as far as the coaching change, let's just concentrate on today's game. Try to get that 7th win. Everybody was hoping we were going to have 9 wins this year or better. 7 wins is only if we'd have beaten Pitt, that'd have been 8. When the bowl game, you got 9. We're back where we were last year. I just concentrate on this game, getting that win, and whatever the decisions are from the admins, that's way above my pay grade. And I think just have to wait and see what happens. My personal feeling is it's tough to fire someone who has 7 wins, but it happens. It happens at some schools, so we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. But right now, I'm just concentrating on today.
We all have faith in Runbaker. He's already shown his mettle. When you look at the choices he's made in terms of new coaches coming in, just look at basketball. Mark Kellogg is doing a tremendous job with the women's team. They're playing at 5 today against an undefeated Boise State team. And if they win that game, which they're going to be favored to do, then that probably sets up a championship game tomorrow, Sunday, against the Texas Longhorns. And that's the first time that the Mountaineers will face a team ranked higher than it is in the rankings.
Right.
West Virginia is 11th or 12th, depending on the rating service, and Texas is 5th or 6th, and that'll be a tough go. And on the men's team, people were glued to the set over the holiday weekend. 3 overtime games, winning 2. When you consider this team had to be assembled from scratch, bringing everyone in. I mean, I'll tell you, DeVries as coach has done an incredible job, similar to what Cignetti has done at Indiana, coming in first year, whole bunch of new players, and my God, next game is against Georgetown. A lot of people say, "Ooh, Georgetown isn't the same Georgetown it's been." It will be the Big East Big 12 Challenge in Morgantown on Friday next. West Virginia will be favored in that game. I saw Georgetown the other day at home against Wagner. West Virginia, if they play their game, will be certainly will be favored no matter what. But my God, what a turnaround from what we've experienced recently in basketball.
It's exciting.
Boy, is ever.
Very similar to the John Beeline era where we came off a horrific season, went to the NIT the second year he was here, and then boom, it just took off from there. Had a great run there. So teams are very similar too in how he knows he doesn't have a big guy to rebound there in the middle, so he's making up for it with the shooting and the defense, and it's in a transition game. It's paying off. So
it certainly is, and I like the way it's one game it's small, the other game it's DeVries, and between inside and outside, and that's fantastic. And today again, we brought this up earlier, but it's worth noting is I can't find any evidence, and I went through it twice. Correct me if I'm wrong. But since West Virginia has been in the Big 12, it's never won all of its road games in any single season, but it has a chance to do that this year if we can get past Texas Tech. To me, that's a lot of motivation. We clearly play, competition has a lot to do with it, but we clearly play better on the road than at home. And so it's a strange comparison of having a losing season at home and yet the possibility of a overall losing season at home games, but having an opportunity to win all of your Big 12 games on the road, which is no easy feat, no matter the competition.
Right. Well, I just feel that the competition in the Big 12 is a lot more difficult than it was in the Big East, and I think our schedule's been tough this year. We had a rough stretch there in October. We persevered in that, and I think just got to hang in there. And 7 wins. No, it's not the 9 that everybody wanted or 10, but you got a chance to kind of turn this around here and get 8 wins if we can win the bowl game. And it's just kind of except to see how it goes and how it plays out today. But I like our chances. I think Phil Steele pointed out the fact of he talked about in his show yesterday. He talked about strength of schedule, and he said our schedule was a lot more difficult than what Texas Tech has went up against. So we're going to see how it all plays out today. Our non-conference schedule it was brutal, but it just who knows? Maybe it's prepared us a little more. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But,
Here's the link to get into the studio if you want to join us in the studio. Sometimes people do, and it gives you an opportunity to speak more directly to everybody. But that's the link. You come in, and so hopefully someone or somebody's will take advantage of that. Yeah, it's going into this game. It's not difficult to go into this game with confidence. Texas Tech has been up and down, and I think one of the things that would be fantastic if the shoe got on the other foot. In other words, the quick start came from West Virginia, and that's not a stretch when you think about how we've opened and had good solid drives game after game. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised. And Neil Brown has spoken to this in the past. Is that in certain circumstances, if you win the toss, you typically would say, we'll go on defense. So you get the ball to begin the second half. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if West Virginia wins the toss today. They're going to take the ball and see what, especially with the wind not being necessarily the factor that it could be.
I think it's set the tone right off the bat. Yeah, that's what I agree with you there. I think it's just a good. It's just a good opportunity here. We'll see. We'll see how we can do.
Yeah, BPA 1985, right on the money. And this has been one of the big criticisms during the Neil Brown era or regime, and that is that they beat the teams they're supposed to beat, but they don't beat the teams that they could upset. And so it's not just an issue for this year. It's been an issue. And if you look at the bottom of the Big 12, Kansas is turning it around. They're playing like we thought they would. They really came out flat. But Oklahoma State, my God, they just got. Nobody predicted that. They were predicted. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, they just got destroyed by Colorado, and they just, of course, when we played them earlier in the season and really had our way in Stillwater, it really the die wasn't cast yet for Oklahoma State. But based on OSU standards, they had a bad year. Quarterback had a bad year, and boy, but yeah, this is yeah. Go ahead.
But Texas Tech 7-4, we're 6-5. That's one game difference. They're not. It's not like we're playing Ohio State or Alabama. So, I think I like our chances today. I think I've got a little bit to prove. Neil Brown's, he's uncertain about his situation. I'd be coaching my rear end off if I were him, trying to pull this out. So I'm hoping we can play well today and get a victory.
Very good. If we look at we put up on Wednesday too in terms of our predictions and assessment, and again, those of you watching today, put in the chat your thoughts for Timothy's already done that. By the way, Timothy, I think you were watching on Wednesday when we had Andy Peters on, but I'll tell you what a tremendous, and Mark, you're the person who recommended Andy and approached him first. What an incredible testimony to WVU and football and his career. But the reason I'm bringing it up with Timothy is that we know that Timothy was a coal miner, and I didn't realize that for 16 months until he said it. Andy was a coal miner too, and that gave him the grounding to be able to move up the system to a vice presidency role. And no better credibility comes.
Exactly.
A person who's done the work and has been there, and it just was just incredible. Anyway, keys to the game. we weren't too far apart here. I mean, it's the offense for Texas Tech. The defense isn't so good, and so we're all together there, almost identical in terms of predictions, all for West Virginia. 41-37. Mickey. By the way, Mickey's under the weather too. We hope he gets well quickly. He unfortunately has bronchitis. Greg under the weather, as we mentioned. He picked WVU, a little bit lower score. Mickey and I were more really together there. I thought 44-41, but it's 4-point differential, 4-point differential, 3-point differential. What's your take?
I think I'm going with Greg. I'm going to go with a 35-34. Really, really tight. Nail biter. Not what the fans would have to sit through for your nerves and everything, but I think it's going to be close, and I think it suits us better, I believe, if we keep it in the mid-30s. If we try to get in a shootout with them, we're going to struggle, I'm afraid. We need that running game to control the clock, and our passing game has been inconsistent, especially the downfield passing. If we get behind and have to battle back throwing every down, I'm afraid we're in.
Yeah.
Vegas kind of side with him.
Well, as you're talking there, I'm thinking that for WVU especially, sometimes the best defense is a really solid offense. You go back to that Oklahoma State game, we just ran and ran and ran. Mm-hmm. And, we were down on the backside with a couple people lost for the season. And so it puts a lot of pressure on that D-line, the linebackers, and also the defensive backs. but you don't have to have those guys on the field if your offense is controlling the ball.
Right.
And so one of the things we've got to not have, which we've seen, is Green can't be a hero, and when it's not there, don't throw it. Don't throw it into a crowd, and don't give them field position. So I think starting position is really important. As Greg always says too, it's a matter of schematics. And Coach Brown has admitted on a number of those long runs and pass plays over this season, there was miscommunications either from the sideline to the field or on the field, so that people or a player who was supposed to be in a particular position wasn't. And in a couple of cases, it was multiple people weren't in the right position, and there was a lane, and then they're off to the races.
Yeah, that's a coaching thing there. I'll have to say. I mean, I'm hoping that we can use some of the short passing, involve a tight end, running backs. One thing I've questioned the whole year, we have such a load of running backs. Why don't we run some multiple back offenses where we have both backs in there at the same time, get a little misdirection going? If they have a bad defensive line and they're giving up yardage, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity to just dice and slice and take advantage of that. But I don't understand why we haven't tried that. Of course, I'm not the head coach, but that's just one observation I've made.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, we've said it more than once, Mark. I personally, I've never been a football coach, so, maybe it's just me, naivete. I'd love to see Nico and Garrett in the backfield at the same time, and I'd also like to see things like the old transcontinental, where whether it's Green or Marchiol gets the ball, then flips it out, and then runs down the sidelines, and the ball comes to him for hopefully a touchdown. But again, I'm not the offensive coordinator, but a little more creativity. And one of the things, the key is let's keep this crowd out of it. I mean, really.
Yeah, no, that's a tough place to play when the crowd gets going. Yeah. One thing too, you keep in mind, why not? We have nothing to lose today. Why don't we just open up the playbook, try some trickery? And that leads to a situation for the bowl game, regardless whether we're going to do it in the bowl game or not. The opposing team's going to have to prepare for it. They'll see it on film. They're going to have to practice against it. Just something else to kind of throw them off a little bit. But I'd open it up today and try some trick plays. Try to, get some quick scores and get out on them a little bit, like we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd love to see exactly what you're talking about happening. I mean, when you think back to the bowl game last year, if you ask fans, what do you remember from the North Carolina bowl game? It was that fake field goal. I mean, it's those plays that stand out. And and there's no question that if we are able to win this game and we finish the season 7-5, hey, it's going to mean a better opponent and a better bowl game. And that's really critical. Now, on the recruiting front, we've been covering this as we go through. And then when we get into January, we're going to cover it, obviously, in great detail. West Virginia dropped a few notches this week. They were 33rd in rivals.
Four commits. We lost four.
Yeah.
We flipped two, but they're from Group of 5 programs, so it wasn't an even trade-off, and we dropped some points in the recruiting.
Yeah, and the other two we lost. One went to Michigan State, but there's a legacy issue there with family, and then I can't recall the other one. We dropped
one with the Georgia Tech too.
That's it. Yeah. We dropped a few slots. We're now, as I recall, 37th in the country, but we were second in the Big 12 behind TCU and Baylor, and with the drop, Arizona State took over third. Yeah, we're now fourth. But when you consider the teams that beat us this year, and when you consider WVU's recruiting in the past, and you consider all the noise around Neil Brown, and you can't, I know a lot of people, or some people at least, are attributing those losses to the Neil Brown situation. But with Nil, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand a much better Nil offer will cause prospective players to switch. And so we don't know the reasons, but the bottom line is we're still hanging in there. The signing day is close, and then the portal opens right after. And we have to remember, again, we lost, I think, 25 players to the portal last year. We got 12 or 13 in on the portal. And according to most sources, including on3.com, the players we got in were evaluated as a group higher than the ones we lost. Right. Nothing negative about those players, but the players that came in, like Carrico and others, and the defensive backs from Northwestern were rated higher than the group that we lost. So a lot of political dynamics, but WVU is, I think, holding its own. And I think the same thing's going to happen in basketball with this success. We're gonna have some guys that look at WVU that may not have looked very seriously, if at all, at us before.
Yeah, I think we're about 21st in recruiting in basketball. He's done pretty good so far and hasn't even hit the portal yet. So
that's right.
I think we're going to be okay. And football-wise, we've over the years had so many players that came in, they were highly touted, that did not pan out, end up not making it and leaving. And we've had some that came in and people are like, I can't believe we signed this guy. And then he turns out to be, playing the NFL for 14 years. And, it's just wait till they sign on the dot. Then we'll talk about what we got and how it looks, and we'll go from there. I mean, what we're signing in high school is very important, but what we're going to get in the portals even going to weigh more, especially in our secondary. We got to get some help there for next year.
Yeah, and one of the things I've really liked about the Neil Brown recruiting approach is he's bringing in a lot of kids, West Virginia boys. I mean, when you look at, and not always, I mean, you mentioned Hudson Clement, not always on scholarship. He was a preferred walk-on, and look at him.
His brother's coming.
Yeah, walk-on, yeah.
Yeah, his brother's coming next year.
That's right.
Yeah,
Sean Martin.
We've always had a good walk-on program. Arndt, from Martinsburg, was a linebacker a few years back. Owen Schmidt was a walk-on. There's more. I can't think of everybody right offhand, but we've had some good walk-ons over the years that have really been a diamond in the rough. You didn't know what you were getting, and it just exploded on the scene. So we've always had success, and I think we'll continue to do that.
Well, one of the things he's talked about, and I've talked about with a number of coaches, and I'm thinking about Denny Brown, the great defensive coordinator from the 80s, and they all say the same thing. There are football skills, that's, how fast you can run, your football IQ and all that stuff, and size, but there's also what's inside of you as a person. And when you look at a Hudson Clement, you can see here's a guy that has a high football IQ, but also he has a huge heart. And you look at, and he's not alone. When you look at the other guys that have come from West Virginia, these are guys that really work hard. They want to be there. They have a passion for the state. They have a passion for the university, passion for football. And one of the things that I like too is they take coaching well. They learn from their mistakes. They try to improve, and you can just see it. They do improve.
That's our blue-collar mentality in West Virginia. Our work ethic's always been good.
That's right.
And I think that's a big factor in that.
Yeah, and we need at the defensive side. And we talked about this the other day. I don't know if it was last Wednesday or not, but if you look at and we'll get into more detail, as I mentioned, in the weeks that come during the Wednesday show. But if you look at what West Virginia's recruiting, at least from the high school level, it's loaded on the defensive side with defensive linemen, including defensive ends and defensive backs. And it's like, I think 5 defensive linemen out of 20, 5 defensive linemen, 5 defensive backs. So roughly half the team is in those position groups. And that's where we need help. There's no question about that.
He's also offered a couple of defensive backs and a defensive lineman. One was from Mississippi, one from Kansas, and one from California. So he's trying to get some guys with some experience to come in and fill some of that void. Of course, we're we're competing against a lot of the big boys for those same guys. So we'll see how it plays out. I know the guy in Mississippi, everybody's after him. So,
Yeah.
but we've had good success down there over the years, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Joey is saying, yeah, Preston Fox is also a walk-on, and he's just great. And yeah, I don't think there's. Well, I was going to say, is there anybody who says that Brown is not a great teacher, a great preparer, etc.? Big question Joey's bringing up is during game day, and there's a lot of criticism. Is that is winning everything? At the end of the day, it is. But on the other hand, when you look at some of these other programs with kids in trouble, going on probation, et cetera, he's done a lot of the things he needs to do from a 360 pretty well. But he's just like a couple games over 500. You're absolutely correct. So, but you know,
well, I
and
don't
it's
want to see us go in reverse and start signing guys that are going to get arrested every week. But he has done a good job cleaning up the culture of the program and the type of kids we're bringing here. I think that's. I don't want to get away from that. But you know, there's coaches out there that do the same. If we do make a change, look at Coach DeVries. He's bringing a top-notch kids in there that haven't been in trouble. Just a different type of athlete, a student athlete, and you know, it can be done. It just let's let it play out. We'll see what happens with the coaching search.
Yeah, you got to find. Yeah, you got to find.
We are not there yet. We may be in a couple of days, or we may not. We'll just have to see how things play out. But I know Neil Brown's working hard. If you get to 7 wins, it's tough to fire somebody when you have 7 wins, but it happens. I mean, I just don't want to see us to make a mistake like Tennessee has down here. You know, they fired Phil Fulmer, who was winning 10 games a year, had a national championship under his belt, but he wasn't winning championships every year. And then it's taken him 20 years to get back on track. You know, they went every 5 years, they've got a new coach, and I don't want to see us get into that kind of a rut either. So.
Yeah, and you know, the interesting thing about it is that when it relates to standards, expectations in terms of wins, we already know that Ren Baker is a great picker of head coaches. I mean, we've seen it. And for those of you who are saying, well, he didn't do it in volleyball, you just wait until you know Jen gets her own people in there, own kids.
You got here late. You got to give her a chance to get a recruiting cycle. She's going to do well.
She was great at Washington State. But what we haven't seen from Ren Baker yet is a statement with respect to expectations for the program. At what level? Because, you know, he didn't have that option with basketball. He really didn't. Both football, I think he sort of said it in women's basketball because he lost a coach he didn't expect to lose after 1 year.
Right.
But and Mark, you know, did well at a mid-major level. But that's the other issue to factor in. If he wants to make a statement and saying, you know, if Neil Brown is let go after let's say 7 or 8 wins, but this is not the level, we can do better, we have to do better. That would be a very emphatic statement about expectations and standards. But that remains to be seen. We'll just have to see.
Well, there was an article yesterday that came out, and he talked about the decision process. Now, he didn't hint whether he was going to fire him or keep him or what he was going to do, but he said, what I want to do is I want to have it in place, everything in place so that coach can win. And what he was hinting at there is getting the NIL where it needs to be competitive, where we're 45th right now, so that everybody says he wants us to be, you know, to cut that in half and be in the 20 range where we compete to get some players. And it takes fundraising, and that's kind of the wave of the future, unfortunately. But he wants everything in place, whether it's Brown to be successful or a new coach or whatever. He didn't hint anywhere, but that's what he's trying to do, is get things in place revenue-wise to be able to make it competitive, make it a competitive job where somebody would want to be here.
And and what that does, Mark, well stated, is that it just puts more pressure, more emphasis on the big donors, because
Exactly.
you can't do it without the big donors, and you're not even factoring in the money that is needed for facilities, which
Exactly.
if you look at the NFL and the new stadiums that are coming up and have come
Hmm.
up, if you think that is being, even though those teams are owned by millionaires, if not
Hmm.
billionaires, you look at the percentage of the total cost coming from public coffers, um, not only in terms of the construction cost, but the ticket prices, the ongoing costs, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. The public shoulders a significant amount of those costs. And in college, it's the big donors. The other piece, and
Yep.
you and I have talked about it, and Greg and I, and Mickey certainly have, it's not as though it's like the NFL with a relatively stable playing field. With this nil and portal, whatever we have today could change tomorrow,
Sure.
just like that. I mean,
Yep.
it's not predictable because the NCAA seems to have either no power, limited power, or they can't exercise the power they have. You never know when Congress is going to step in. You'd have
Uh-huh.
no idea what's going to happen. So, for example, the rumor is that we're going to see more private equity money in college
Hmm.
football. If that
Hmm.
happens, it could change the landscape significantly.
Sure
I
could.
mean, I don't know how many people are following what's happening in college basketball, but there's a tournament right now that essentially is being organized and offered by the private sector that essentially is a nil NIL a nil tournament with a significant amount of money on the table. I've never seen anything like it, and
Yeah.
so things are going to change. And so just like the head coach has to recruit every player twice, come
Hmm.
into the program, sign, and then after the season is over,
You
you
got to
got to
keep them.
recruit. It's the
Yeah.
same thing for the ADs.
Yep.
You got to be nimble. You got to be adaptive. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's a tough job. Those are
Oh
tough
yeah.
jobs.
Yep. Well, I think you're seeing a lot of coaches. Chip Kelly's one. He dropped from a head coach to a coordinator. A lot of the basketball coaches, Roy Williams, Bennett at Virginia, are getting out of it. Saban, he's not enamored with the way things are headed. It is a tough situation, and somebody coming out of the NFL back into college coaching is in for a rude awakening. Whether you're not used to the recruiting, but then you've also got all this other stuff you've got to worry about that you didn't have to in the pros, and it's a changing uh, environment every day. There's something new always coming up. When you implement something and put it in place and mandate it without any regulations, that's what happens. You should have had some parameters in place, and they didn't do that, and it's just like it's wide open right now.
Yep. Yeah, I think Joey's right here. We're all saying that, but we don't want to get into a track meet with Texas Tech there in particular.
Uh-huh.
Who would have predicted that last year's game in Morgantown would not be a track meet? That Texas Tech until the fourth quarter was pretty much spinning its wheels. They came on. We were helped by the clock in that game, but
Mm-hmm.
Morton had a bad game. As bad a game in 23 in Morgantown as a good game that he had in Lubbock in
Right.
22. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't want that to flip again. But West Virginia had a way of controlling him last year, as we showed earlier, especially on third down. He just wasn't effective. So we're just going to we'll see.
Have to see how it goes. Yeah.
And watch the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first 5 minutes are going to be very telling.
Going to dictate a lot of it. Yeah. They'll see how it goes. We don't want to get in a position where we're trying to fight from behind, because I don't think we can't pass enough to keep up. We're going to have to take control of that clock and control of the time of possession in order to win this.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes back to what you were saying before, Mark, is that, again, who am I to say this? But one of the things I think the keys to this game is to give Texas Tech on defense, our offense, their defense, what their defense is not expecting from us. Little trickeration here and there, different sets, different people involved, different plays. So they're obviously set up to basically attack us on defense based on what we do regularly. So be irregular. do things
Be
they're not
ready.
expecting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's we have nothing to lose. I mean, if we lose, we were supposed to, but if we pull out all stops, that gives us a better chance to pull off the win.
Yeah. In fact, the thing that you brought up there, I didn't check recently. Let me go and the line opened at 3.5 Texas Tech, and the last time I looked, it had dropped to 2.5.
Okay.
And let's see if that's where it still is. This machine has everything, as we know. So it's still at 2.5.
Okay.
It opened at 3.5 Texas Tech and has moved in West Virginia's favor by a point, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
The over and under is 63.5, which would be what, a 33, 30, 35, 30 game.
Yeah.
So that's basically, which is not outlandish, that's for sure. But it's
for us to win,
and
I
West
think
Virginia,
that's where it's gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's well, I've said this for weeks, Joey, and it hasn't happened. And I sent a few turkeys to Neil they weren't very big turkeys over the weekend. They weren't even fresh, but I got them cheap, and I sent them to Neil. And instead of stuffing, he just pulled out and said, it said Nico Garrett backfield same time. But I don't know if he got it, given the security at his door. But anyway, seriously, why not do the transcontinental?
Exactly.
Yeah, although the problem with doing the transcontinental, if Nico goes into the game, everybody's going to be screaming transcontinental. Watch the quarterback. So, but you got some guys as receivers. Was Preston Fox a receiver in high school? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
That's what I thought. You got guys, receivers, who were quarterbacks. Basically flip it to them. Quarterback comes out of the backfield, throw it to them. Just give them what they don't expect.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't, do you really want to play Texas Tech straight up in Lubbock? I don't think so. And are you going to be able to do what you did to Oklahoma State and Stillwater, run the ball down their throat? Probably not. But again, the fact that they've given up more sacks this year says maybe their offensive line isn't as good. But Brown talked about the strength of their defense. If Kelly likes it, we should do it. No question. So let's see if they do it. But why not? The thing that I've always said, guys, is you got a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school, an asset, just sitting there, and he's been sitting there unless Green gets hurt. I don't really understand, and I don't think the question's ever been asked during a press conference. If it did, I missed it. Why isn't Nico integrated into the offense with Garrett Green on the field? Because then what you're dealing with, you've got either or. It's either Garrett Green or Nico, and where Brown's coming from. It's going to be Green until he's hurt. But why can't you fuse a both and? I don't know. So let's keep I don't know. I'd love to see it.
I'd pull out all stops. We have nothing to lose. Go in there and wheeling and dealing, and like I said, what do you got to lose?
Yeah, Preston throw a pass. I mean, it's just I don't. Cole Taylor throw a pass. I don't know about Cole Taylor. He's kind of slow and lanky, but you never know. He may be athletic enough to pull it off. I don't know. You never know. Yeah, but it'd be exciting. So the thing you and I were talking about, Mark, and Greg and I were too. Mickey was involved in it. We waited all spring and summer with great anticipation for the season to start. And then it went like a flash. I mean, this is the last pregame show during the regular season. With God's grace, we'll do a pre-bowl game show. But, it's just gone so fast.
Yeah. It's I think part of that's where we're getting old, Frank, where time's flying by. Yeah, it has gone fast.
I know.
The anticipation of the season coming up, I get all excited, and then boom, it's over. And it's just, I'll do it again next year. I'll be excited when spring ball hits, and
Yeah.
Here in Tennessee, football's king. To them, basketball just kind of occupies the time between the bowl game and spring practice. They just and they have a really good basketball program here, but it's just the focus is on football, and I'm a football first guy. I really, it's an exciting time for me when the season starts.
That's right. And thinking of the holidays, let me put up here. Mark Rogers has written a new book. It is a very good one. We're all students of history, and we love history. And before the college playoff, naming the national champions was a whole different process. And Mark has written a really good book about the 1990s and whether the right teams were crowned national champs. And it's available everywhere you buy books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, online, certainly your local bookstores, because we want to give local booksellers a shout out. And it's available in electronic and paperback versions online and paperback through local bookstores. And the name of the book is coming up right now, Disputed National Champions, College Football's Historical 1990s Reset. And, I had talked with Mark the other day, and none of us would be here if it weren't for the vision of Mark Rogers. Mark Rogers left ESPN to start the Voice of College Football, and we encourage you to go to that page and that channel, by the way, the Voice of College Football, and just see all the various channels there, probably about 25 different channels on the network. West Virginia University, the Mountaineers are one, but there's a Michigan channel, Ohio State, Southern Cal, etc. And he's really well on his way to building an empire for people who love college football. And the great thing about the Voice of College Football, Mark, is it doesn't end when the season's over. It's a 52-week a year operation, and it's really a good thing. So what does Timothy have to say? And I'll bet you we'll win more than 9 games in basketball this year. Timothy goes way out on a limb.
We may have 9 before Christmas, the way we're going.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that was my pick last year. I'm usually not good at this, and I hit it on the nose. And I'm a big Josh Eilert fan, and we had a chance to interview him and his wife. They're both fantastic people, and it's going to be interesting later in the year because Utah is coming to Morgantown, and there he'll be in the sidelines, and I'll bet you 10-1 it's not going to be too long before he gets the upgrade back to a coach. A good guy, good family person, comes out of the Kansas State program, and good values, Heartland values. His great family, great spouse, great kids, just the kind of person that an AD would want to hire. So, but we've got that in Darren DeVries now. So that's we're lucky too. So everything works out. Any final comments, my friend, before we sign off for the day?
No, I just let's will the Mountaineers to victory and hail West Virginia.
Yeah, and again, I want to very much express my appreciation, Mark, for you coming on board. As always, Mark helps us so much on the guest side, along with Mike Dunlap, and we just couldn't get all our guests without the connections they have. In fact, we've got another really good one coming up this Wednesday that Mark helped. Some fans may not remember the name David Lockwood. David played in the mid to late 80s, was on that, played on the team that competed for the national championship, defensive back. He has really made a name for himself nationally. They call him Coach Lockdown, and he's coached at all over the place, including back at WVU under, you see, I think he coached, under Rich Rod. Wasn't he with Rich Rod?
Yeah, and he was with Stewart as well too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame, and most recently at the University of Minnesota. And so he'll be with us next Wednesday, and we appreciate that. And we wish, as I mentioned at the very beginning, Greg Crist, get back on your feet as quickly as possible. Same thing with Mickey. We want to get those guys back. We appreciate all of you who watched today. Thank you, Kelly, as always, for your loyalty. And yes, let's go Mountaineers. We always say, Mark, that we want to come into that post-game show 15 minutes after the end of the final whistle with a smile on our face. This is what we want to do. And Dave Gorby is going to join me in the post-game show because Greg can't be with us today. And Dave was on the pregame show with us last week. He's a real student of the game. And so we look forward to having him. And thank you again for being with us, Mark. And let me see, we've got another comment here. Oh, my pleasure. Always. Timothy's saying, yes, he's got a prediction here. I'll take that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody, enjoy the game. Kick off at noon, and we'll see you, hopefully a lot of you, in the pregame show. Take care.